In the district of Covine-Rich Plain, you saw a collaboration between the corporate community and private citizens and the councillor in accumulating foodstuff for those affected by the pandemic. A soup kitchen funded by the councillor's office and members of the PNM's Women's League residing in her district provided hot meals 2 Saturdays of every month for 1 year. Councillor Boyce also hosted a Christmas party to spread cheer to children. The district of Covine-Rich Plain saw the installation of convex mirrors, speed humps, manhole covers, and a grill. The councillor's office, in collaboration with the Disaster Management Unit, was able to provide relief to affected residents and assisted with obtaining grants for home repairs. Committed and resilient, Councillor Boyce continues to collaborate with other agencies such as WASA, Ministry of Works and Transport, Self-Help LSA, and TNTEC to help bring relief to her residents. In the district of Chaguaramas Point Kimana, under local government development projects for the term 2019 to 2022, we were able to see the completion of 11 projects, from road restorations, drainage works, pathways, and retaining walls, with 7 more estimated to be completed before the year's end. In collaboration with my residents during the pandemic, I was able to supply homemade bread for almost 2 years to over 500 families within my district. This initiative started in my kitchen and went on to become something I could never imagine. Residents came together to assist me. I see some of you in the crowd tonight. And to date, in some of my communities, the system is still functional. My office has remained consistent with my back-to-school initiatives and Christmas hamper distributions 6 years in a row. During the pandemic, I distributed hundreds of hampers to my residents and also provided 14 school-age children with devices and others with internet access vouchers. I continue to collaborate with agencies such as WASA and TNTEC to help bring relief to my residents. And through this, we have seen many streetlights and leaks repaired in the district of Chaguaramas Point Kimana. We also saw the installation of the Seaview Hill Pump Station and the upgrade of the School Street Pump Station. It would be remiss of me if I did not mention the support extended to us by our MP and his staff. Our request for assistance has never gone unnoticed. And because of this, through our MP's office, we have seen the completion of more than 20 projects in the constituency by agencies such as PURE and RDC during this term. And to be clear, those projects are separate from our local government projects. Our MP also provided us with hampers and sometimes vouchers every single week during the pandemic to bring aid to our residents. Dr. Rowley has been consistent with supplying us with school supplies to help boost our own efforts. He has never left us in the wilderness. And for that, I speak for my colleagues and I when I say, Dr. Rowley, we are grateful, we are thankful. As I speak tonight, with our line minister leading the way, reform knocks at the door of local government. And we should all be excited, because reform means new responsibilities, secure funding, more effective municipal policing, development control, more infrastructural work, more jobs, involvement of civil society, regional development planning, and so much more. All mentioned are tools that would allow your local government reps to better serve you, the people of Diego Martin West, and by extension, the region. From here, it can only get better. But before I leave this platform, I have some questions that I know you know the answer to, and I encourage you to join me in answering them. So let's go. Which government has kept us from the claws of the IMF, even while being hindered by a recession? The PNM. Which government saw to it that not one public servant was laid off during a pandemic with no salary cuts, ensuring that every month their salaries were in the bank on time? The PNM. Which government added to the social services grant on top of all the grants that were already available to be able to reach those most affected by the pandemic? The PNM. Which government distributed thousands of food hampers weekly to every region, to every constituency, to every district for almost 2 years during a pandemic? The PNM. The PNM. Which government, led by the Honorable Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, took us through a world pandemic, still standing strong to fight another day? The PNM. Yes, the answer is the People's National Movement. And for this, I remind you tonight that great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we will always prevail. Thank you.
Now you hear PNM talk. Thank you very much, Councillor Glasgow. At this time, I would like to call on the members of the executive to come forward so that we could be installed to serve in our new term. I start with committee member Arlene Patrick. Committee member Claudette Rollo. Committee member Tracy Raymond. Committee member Orman Edwards. Committee member Judith Smith. Committee member Ayana Lewis. Committee member Gabriela Osuna. Committee member Rita Joseph. Committee member Camille Alexis. We now move on to Youth League Chairman Alia Alexis. Women's League Chairman Karen Alexis. Youth Officer Yokima Batalmi. Welfare Officer Stacy Brizan. Field Officer Francine Edwards. Education Officer Patrice Santelia. Elections Officer Susan Hong. Social Media Officer Akila Glasgow Warner. Public Relations Officer Mr. Sigler Jack. Treasurer Larry Pinero. Assistant Secretary Lisa Burton. Secretary Karen Lewis Fraser. Vice Chairman Phyllis Wickham Stewart. And last but not least, Robert Cizé, your chairman. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce our first guest speaker. Dr. Nian Gadsby Dolly completed her secondary education at St. Augustine Girls High School. She obtained a bachelor's degree in analytical chemistry and a postgraduate diploma in educational technology, and her doctoral degree in chemistry at the University of the West Indies. Dr. Dolly served as an educator for 11 years, starting her career at St. Francois Girls College, then moving on to the tertiary level as a senior lecturer at COSTAT for 6 years. Dr. Dolly was elected Member of Parliament for St. Anne's East in 2015 and served as Minister of Community Development, Culture and the Arts from 2015 to 2020. Dr. Dolly also chaired the Joint Select Committee on Human Rights, Equality and Diversity. A member of the acclaimed Lydian Singers, she is an avid reader and researcher with a lively interest in history. Born and raised in New Orleansville, San Juan, where she currently resides, she is the last of 4 siblings, a mother of 3 teenagers, and she is passionate about youth motivation, development, and success. Dr. Nian Gadsby Dolly was re-elected as Member of Parliament for St. Anne's East and now serves as the Minister of Education of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Diego Martin West, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Nian Gadsby Dolly.
Give praise, children, yeah. Give praise. Give praise, children, yeah. Oh, Father, who has given us his arms that we can all...
Good night, Diego Martin West. Nah. Good night, Diego Martin West. That sounds more like it. Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West, political leader of the People's National Movement, and Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, political leader now, political leader after December the 4th. Give it up for your Member of Parliament. Minister Marvin Gonzalez, my cabinet and parliamentary colleagues who are here, Chairman, Executive of the Diego Martin West constituency, newly installed executive, Sigler Jack, Chairman of the Diego Martin Regional Corporation, and other members of local government represented here, ladies and gentlemen, greetings from the constituency, the scenic constituency of St. Anne's East. I have Maracas Bay in my constituency, I have Los Cuevas in my constituency, right? So, greetings from the scenic St. Anne's East constituency. It is a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me. You have the fish fry? All right. Well, I can't battle with that one, right? I'm here this afternoon, or this evening I should say, to speak to you a little bit about what is contained in the 2022 allocation for education and how that benefits us all. What is the purpose of education? Why do we educate our children? Is it just because we have to find somewhere to send them when the day comes? Is it just about going to school? Education is broader than that. What we are creating is the citizens who will drive the trajectory of Trinidad and Tobago upwards to the realization of Vision 2030. That is what we are doing. And that is what everything we do is aimed at. So when we can say that for the past umpteen years, around 10% of our national budget has been allocated to education, it is with that purpose in mind, to create the workforce that will develop Trinidad and Tobago. 60 years ago, we said to the world that we were going to take care of ourselves. We were independent. It means that we have to create the professional cadre, and that is what education is aimed at doing. So every year, about 10% of our annual budget, round and about 5 million. This budget, it's $5.5 billion allocated to education in fiscal 2022-23. Let me go into a little bit of what we are going to spend that money on, because we are dealing with how it benefits the constituents of Diego Martin West. What exactly are we doing with that $5.5 billion? How is that going to benefit all of us? $44 million of that budget is dedicated to digital transformation. Why is that important? What COVID taught us is that we have to increase our efficiency. What COVID taught us is that we have to increase our resilience, meaning that things that we are normally doing physically, we have to now transform them digitally to be able to perform even when physical presence is not possible. We never imagined a situation like that. And what is demanded of us now is greater efficiency in our operations. So for our students, when we have a situation like COVID presenting us, saying to us that we have to teach these children even when they are not physically present, now that we have experienced that, we cannot afford to let something else sneak up on us for us to be in the same situation. So COVID caught us unawares and off guard. But what we have to do now is to prepare for a situation which we may not ever know what it might be or when it might come, but we have to be prepared for that. And so digital transformation has to take place in our classrooms. We have the vision of exactly what happened when we were forced into it at COVID, the vision of educational continuity even when physical classes are not possible. And that has to be organized in a certain way. Our teachers have to have their e-classrooms ready. It has to be primed. Our students have to be able to move between the physical and the digital world very easily. It happened at the tertiary level. They were able to move seamlessly into digital learning, but it was not so easy at the lower levels. So that is what we aim to create at the lower levels. That's why that digital transformation is so important. And it's not just at the level of teaching and learning, it's also at the level of the administration of the ministry. If you've ever seen a teacher's file, then you would understand why the inefficiencies are so great with respect to increments and payments. A teacher's file, especially one that is stored for many years, could be about this thick, full of paper, very heavy, very easy to get under someone's desk and stay there for a while, very easy for things to get lost. And that's why we have that level of inefficiency. So the digital transformation is more than just at the level of the school or the classroom, it's also within the workings of the ministry, and that is a priority for us in 2023. 15 million spent on children, specifically children with special needs. So we pay for children with special needs at private schools. We have our government schools as well. And that excludes the money that is spent on the over 700 staff members of the Student Support Services Division. Why is this important? Because we speak to inclusive education. We speak to the availability of educational opportunity and equity in educational opportunity. And therefore, we must focus on ensuring that we continue to do this, and we also ramp up and beef up that service to our children with special needs. $204 million spent on scholarships and bursaries. You would know that previous to 2020, we spent that money and more on 400 scholarship students. It is the brainchild of our Honorable Prime Minister, your Member of Parliament, to increase that to 600 students by including 500 bursaries and reducing the scholarships to 100. So now, instead of just 400, we help 600 students. Teachers' salaries. Almost half of the budget of the Ministry of Education is spent on paying our teachers. And that is important, $2.4 billion. That is important and it's critical because when COVID stepped in some other countries, the first people to get cut off were public servants, including teachers. In Trinidad and Tobago, and you heard your counselor say it, in Trinidad and Tobago, that was not our situation. And it came at great sacrifice. But our teachers were there in the main, taking care of our students while they were at home, and we were happy as a government to be able to ensure that they were paid on time and their full salary for this time. So 2.4 billion goes into that. So we're speaking about the benefits. What is there in the 2022-2023 budget for the population of our country, specifically Diego Martin West? $50 million has been put into this year's budget for remedial education. And again, I want to directly thank our Prime Minister, your MP, for that. Anyone who is a parent in here or who has had contact with children, anyone who knows what has been happening over 2 years understands that learning loss is a clear and present danger. We sit here now, we are happy to be back physically, we don't have to wear the mask, and we may be tempted to feel that COVID is over. But for the children who experienced 2 years at home, COVID is not over, and it will be with them for a very long time. Social media has now brought to light some of the indiscipline that has been happening in schools, and we are seeing it now, and it's extremely concerning. But understand that these children have been at home for 2 years. They have not been interacting with others physically. They haven't had people up in their space. They haven't had people choking them and annoying them. So at the slightest drop of a hat, they are reacting because they are out of practice. 2 years in the life of children under the age of 18, 2 years is a long time. So they are now getting back into socialization, and that's why it's so important that we are at this juncture in our education system, because that is a part of life. They're not going to be living up on a hill, them alone, in their family circle. So they're coming back out. So a big part of what our principals are telling us, and I've been visiting schools, speaking to principals. We have over 800 schools in this country. We have only reached about 100 and something in visiting our schools. But we are visiting it to speak to the principals, look at the children, understand what's happening. And what the principals are telling us is that the greatest challenge is to reintegrate the children socially and prepare them mentally to be able to learn. So that $50 million is going to be used in large part to help in that reintegration process, to teach them again what is positive behavior, to show them explicitly, to have people come into schools and speak to them, to run the vacation revision program so that they have a greater immersion in their schoolwork, to do after-school math and English tutoring. And that will be in 26 schools, secondary schools, and we will be able to expand it to around 25 to 30 primary schools, because our children need that attention at this time. And if we don't do that now, invest in them now to bring them back from the brink, then consider what will be facing us in a couple years. It was our first Prime Minister who said that the future of this country lies upon the scholastic development of our children. So that is the insidious nature of what COVID did to us. And so 50 million invested in this way is going to reap dividends in the way our children benefit from that. So I want to thank the Prime Minister again for his foresight in allocating that. 33 million spent on our operation of preschools. We have over 200 public preschools, and we support over 50 serve-all preschools in this country, and that is separate from the private preschools. We have a lot of schools in this country, a lot of schools. So 33 million for preschools, and that's excluding the staff cost. That's just for the operations. 228 million is allocated in grants for schools. Help schools operate, buy equipment, help schools to pay for the government-assisted schools, pay for maintenance, security, all of that. 380 million is allocated for social purposes within the school. So that covers the school feeding program. That alone is $270 million in this annual year. School transport, devices for teachers and students, bursaries, retraining program of YTEP, very successful program that took place for workers who were displaced from their jobs during COVID. The help loan, all of this is is aimed at the social aspect of education, helping students so that they are in a place where they can benefit from the education that is given. $380 million allocated for that. And that is apart from the GATE. GATE is $400 million allocated under the Ministry of Finance's budget. So in that $5.5 million I spoke about for Ministry of Education, GATE is separate and apart from that. And what we have done for GATE this year is significant. I was a lecturer at COSTAT when GATE was in its heyday, and I can tell you how heartbreaking it was to see the wastage. Students just coming into programs, dropping out. I'm sure every one of you here has had the experience of knowing someone who would have done that. Just wastage because it was free. And though education is free in this country, it is not cheap. Somebody pays for it. That comes out of our taxpayers' budget. And therefore, the restrictions that were placed on GATE were not placed to keep people out. It was placed because we are in a time of serious financial crunch. And therefore, the money that is spent needs to be spent wisely and it needs to be appreciated. So when we put the restriction on GATE to one program, we realized that there were some people who really needed it. And so we were able, at this point, this year, to open it back a bit, so that students, if you're doing your N1, you can now apply to do your BSc. If you're doing an associate at COSTAT, you can apply for GATE to do your BSc. And that will open up the channel again for our young people. And I want to encourage our young people, take advantage of the opportunity. It is free to you, but it is not cheap. It's not cheap. It is a real privilege to be able to have that as something you can count on from your government. And in times like these, when money is difficult to come by, it is really something that we have to hold on to. School infrastructure. We have over 300 of our 800 schools that are over 40 years old. Some of them over 60 years old, many of them, some over 100 years old. So you can understand that school infrastructure has to take a significant chunk of the budget. 165 million allocated in this fiscal, and I can tell you that more will be sought from the Ministry of Finance for that, because that is something that is going to keep taking a lot of money. Think about your own home. Think about how many things go wrong in your home every day. A pipe burst, a guttering falling down. So multiply that by 800 and think about the fact that it's school children running through these buildings, and understand that this is always going to be a challenge and something we have to spend significant funds on. $983 million is allocated, almost $1 billion, for the running of our public tertiary institutions. UE, COSTAT, MIC, YTEP, NESC, UTT, MedSci, specifically at UE, Hugh Whitting Law School for law students, nursing, almost $1 billion. So apart from the GATE that is spent to pay the tuition for you to go there, you have to spend $1 billion to help these organizations run so that you can get the GATE to go there. So understand how much the government is allocating to education because of how important it is, how crucial it is. And when we see that $5.5 billion in this fiscal, in the budget that is now being debated in the Senate, understand that all of that goes back to investment in our citizens, creating the workforce that is going to drive our development. Because if we don't do that, then this country cannot progress. Without an educated workforce, this country will not go forward. Where would our doctors come from, our architects? Where would our political leaders come from? All of us have been the beneficiaries of the policy that started, and always remember this, started with the people's national movement, that investment in education of our people. That is PNM policy. So whether you're a student, whether you're a parent, whether you're a teacher, you are benefiting from the allocation that has been placed in the Ministry of Education for 2022-2023. This allocation has something for all of us. I want to thank the Prime Minister for being a champion of young people. You see, in 2014, the Prime Minister made a call, and I don't know if he remembers that, but he made a call for young people to come forward and to serve their country. I responded to that call in 2014. And the end result of all of that was that I was age 37, placed in charge of a ministry because of the faith of the Prime Minister, who was not afraid to make the call, and when the response came, to act on that response. He wasn't afraid to put his money where his mouth was. I want to thank you, Prime Minister, for your faith in the youth. Our Prime Minister has a favorite saying. He said that it's the young people who have to work hard. I'm sure everyone around us has heard him say that. He said, the young people, you're the ones to work hard. And we take the example from seeing our political leader working hard, giving his best effort to this country, to this constituency. How many years has he been the MP of this constituency? 33? Prime Minister, that's correct? 32? Anyone that has served this long in public service deserves all of our respect. I have been at it for 7 years, and trust me, that cannot be an easy thing to do. And it is because of the Prime Minister's example, his dedication of his life to service, and the benefits of that to this country. It is for this reason that I have offered myself to serve in the People's National Movement as the Vice Chairman. And of course, I ask Digger Martin West for your support. I want to tell you this, that this party is a party that believes in its young people, that grooms its young people to serve. We sit at the feet of leaders like your MP, Camille Robinson-Regis, who is here, and many others who show us by their example that it's an honorable thing to serve your country. And I can tell you that we are grateful, as the younger people, we are grateful for your example and what you have done. So as we continue to sit at your feet, as we continue to strive to do our best for our country, to contribute to our country, I look forward to your support, and I tell you that your confidence will not be misplaced. We are here to serve. We, the young people of the PNM, will continue to fly the PNM flag with distinction. So for their belief in the young people, not just talk, but the walk, for their guidance of our young people, for ensuring that our young people have the correct allocations in the budget to carry them forward and to drive this country towards the development that we are looking for, towards Vision 2030. I say with great conviction, great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM, and we shall prevail.
Give praise, children. Give praise. Give praise, children. Yeah. Give praise. Give praise, children. Yeah. Oh, Father, who has given us this answer.
Come on, Digger Martin West. We could do better than that. Our next speaker is a former police officer who obtained his Bachelor of Laws degree from the University of London. He was admitted to practice law in Trinidad and Tobago in 2012 and now serve us as our Minister of Public Utilities. Please welcome the Member of Parliament for Lopino Bonner West, Mr. Marvin Gonzalez.
Give praise, children. Give praise. Give praise, children. Yeah. Give praise. Give praise, children. Yeah. Oh, Father, who has given us this heart that we can all feel like we are part of this earthly heaven.
Member of Parliament for the constituency the great constituency of Diego Martin West, political leader of the People's National Movement, the only political party in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and one of the oldest political party in the Caribbean. Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, members of the executive of the Diego Martin West constituency, chairman, members of cabinet, and may I specifically mention the matriarch of the House of Representatives, the Honorable Camille Robinson Regis, members of the Senate, and of course, yes, we recently christened her the matriarch of the House of Representatives. Am I correct? Am I correct? Let me also recognize my esteemed cabinet colleague, the Honorable Minister of Education, Nayan Gadsby Dolly. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, I am very privileged and I'm very honored to be invited to give remarks at your 49th conference. And when I was asked to give remarks at today's conference, I looked at your theme, and it says quite boldly, moving forward together with commitment and resilience. Moving forward together with commitment and resilience. And I thought that this was indeed a theme that should be examined, that should be pondered upon. Because when one examines the life of your political leader, our political leader, and your member of parliament, we see nothing but commitment and resilience, not only to the constituency of Diego Martin West, but for the people of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. So I thought that your theme was very important for tonight's proceedings, because as a young member of parliament and a young minister just entering politics, just 2 years, I often ask myself, what level of commitment and what level of resilience that will get someone to remain in politics for 32 years in Trinidad and Tobago? It's very difficult. It's very challenging. Because in Trinidad and Tobago, oftentimes you ask yourself, it is very difficult to do the right things. It is very difficult to stand up for the right things, because the slings and arrows and the attacks that come against you for doing the right thing, one has to admire our political leader and our Prime Minister. Because it was not easy, I can well imagine. Because when the history books are written about his era, especially when he served as Prime Minister and leader of the People's National Movement, one will never see and one will never read the difficulties and the challenges and the slings and arrows that he faced to provide good, stable governance to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. It will never be written. It will look as though it was quite easy. But I can tell you, those who are in it, they know it. Because it is very difficult. It is very difficult. And sometimes you have to go against the people within your own political party for doing the right things. Sometimes you have to go against the people and powerful forces within your own community and within your own country for doing the right things, because oftentimes when people take positions in the media appearing to be persons of virtue, their intention oftentimes is against the interests of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And that is why when Dr. Rowley, in his first stint as Prime Minister, took the unpopular decision to restructure Petrotrin, several political leaders and prime ministers refused to take that decision because of the political price. But he took a decision because of his commitment, because of his resilience in the political arena, putting his faith in the good people and the honest people, the educated people, the intelligent citizens. The words of the national anthem with boundless faith in our destiny. Being guided by those words and those principles, he took the decision to restructure Petrotrin, because had it not been done, this national economy and our livelihoods would have been in peril. So when one judge, our political leader and our prime minister, and when one takes into consideration what it means to be resilient and what it means to be committed, let us put that in his column. Do you agree? And as Aquila Glasgow would have said a short while ago, when he came in as prime minister with falling oil and gas prices, its falling revenue, over $15 billion less in the national coffers, and he had to take decisions to hold our country together, going against the advice of pseudo-intellectuals to devalue the national currency, to retrench public officers, to reduce expenditure to match our revenue. He did not go against it. He did not heed the advice. And gradually, we reduce our national expenditure, bringing our revenues and our expenditure closer together by undertaking projects with good governance. In so many projects all over Trinidad and Tobago, for example, the Curep interchange, you would recall, an interchange that was supposed to be constructed under the UNC government to the tune of $500 or $600 million, was constructed under his leadership and his governance to about $300 million, thereby saving the people and the taxpayers of this country nearly $200 million. Resilience and commitment to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Put that in his column. Dr. Rowley, when he became Prime Minister in 2015, would have examined the tax concessions negotiated by Kamla Prasad Bisesa and her government, traveled all around the world negotiating very, very hard deals in the boardrooms of energy companies, renegotiating contracts. And if today we are benefiting from high oil and gas revenue, it is because of the work that he and Minister Young would have done over the years to renegotiate some of these tax concessions, thereby bringing additional revenues into the coffers of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. He refused to take their advice and go before the IMF and take very, very dangerous advice and positions that would have imperiled our standard of living. He held the fort. He refused to take their advice because he remained resilient and committed to the cause and for preserving our standard of living. You would also recall in that CLICO bailout, Dr. Rowley, the Honorable Minister of Finance, and several cabinet colleagues would have instituted legal proceedings to recover billions of dollars on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Billions of dollars, over $20 billion, because of his resilience, because of his commitment. And coming out of that, his government would have established the National Investment Fund, where over 7,500 citizens are now bondholders, benefiting from some of the most profitable state enterprises that we have, like in Angostura. 7,500 of our citizens are now benefiting from the National Investment Fund. And when that fund was created, the opposition leader called it a Ponzi scheme. A Ponzi scheme, discouraging our citizens from participating in that investment. And today, over $800 million was given out in interest to 7,500 of our citizens as a result of the work that our political leader would have done. Because again, always guided by the principles of boundless faith in our destiny. And as Councillor Glasgow would have mentioned a short while ago, this COVID pandemic, no prime minister and no political leader in Trinidad and Tobago had to govern Trinidad and Tobago under a pandemic. We would have seen where lives were falling apart in Italy, in the United States of America, all over Europe. Health sectors were overwhelmed. Bodies were being piled up in makeshift morgues. Mass graves were dug to dispose of the dead. But Dr. Rowley, leading a team of professionals in the medical field, and our esteemed Minister of Health and senior cabinet colleagues, took the appropriate action to safeguard the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And even though 4,000 of our citizens would have succumbed to this COVID pandemic, we would not have witnessed in our beloved nation of Trinidad and Tobago a health sector that became overwhelmed and bodies piling up in morgues, with persons lying down the streets gasping for breath. We were able to save this country from this possibility, thanks to our political leader for his commitment and his resilience. You would recall a couple of years ago, with big geopolitical activities taking place 2 or 3 miles away in Venezuela, when we were being dictated to take certain international positions. And our political leader said that we will adhere to the United Nations Charter without getting involved in the internal politics of nations. And he demanded that powerful nations like the United States of America adhere to the United Nations Charter of non-interference in the political affairs of Trinidad and Tobago. He would have faced the slings and arrows of intellectuals here in Trinidad and Tobago, our political opponents. He was accused, the government was accused of abandoning Venezuelans because we did not take positions. And Dr. Rowley, leading his colleagues in the Caribbean, demanded that the UN Charter be respected and that our position that we held since our independence be respected. And whilst all of that was taking place, the leader, destructive leader of the opposition, was calling for him to be sanctioned because he was pursuing the interests of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So today, I say this is another example of resilience and commitment that we are very, very proud of. And as Dr. Nayan Gasby-Dolly would have indicated a short while ago, his commitment to the youth and the young people of Trinidad and Tobago, the very first Prime Minister to establish a Ministry of Youth and National Development and National Service. So many great programs coming out of this ministry to transform the lives of our young people who are crying out for help and crying out for some kind of meaningfulness in their lives. We have to congratulate our cabinet colleague, the Minister of Youth Development, for taking the mantle in this ministry and touching lives in a very, very powerful way. And thanks to our political leaders for seeing it fit to establish a ministry for youth development. And today I ask every youth in Trinidad and Tobago to take responsibility and make use of all the programs and the opportunities that are available under the Ministry of Youth Development. You would recall a couple of years ago, the Prime Minister leading his charge in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. We're talking about resilience, and we are talking about commitment to national development. The Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, leading his colleagues in the Parliament, selected a commissioner of police who had a history of attacking the same Prime Minister and political leader for attacking the PNM. And the Prime Minister, putting aside all political differences, repose his faith and his trust in this citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, overlooking the fact that he was a member of other political organizations opposed to the PNM, but believing that all these things can be set aside and a young citizen, an energetic citizen, can come forward and serve in the office of Commissioner of Police, even though he was not placed first, he was not placed second, he was not placed third, but fourth on the merit list. That is because our political leader was committed and has always been committed to the cause and for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I'm going to stop here on that particular point. We are not discussing what transpired after. I'm simply raising it because it takes someone with a certain level of maturity and a certain level of understanding and faith to take that kind of position. And we have to commend your Member of Parliament, our political leader and Prime Minister, for making decisions that are in the best interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And I thank him very much for that. And that is the reason why we are here gathered today in his constituency, to give him all the support, to continue to give him all the support that he needs to lead a very difficult nation. And as my friend Roger Monroe, the Member of Parliament for Sangre Grande, would have said in Parliament recently, he reminds us as Michael the Archangel, always fighting battle. He fighting battle in the east, he fighting battle in the west. But that Michael the Archangel is also fighting a very wicked Sukuya. And we know that he will defeat that Sukuya, because that Sukuya just cannot rest. A restless soul. But today, as I end my contribution, I want to tell our political leader and our Prime Minister that no weapon formed against him shall prosper. We will raise the psalm, as we say, yea, though we walk in the valley of the shadow of death, we will fear no evil, for the Lord is with us. His rod and his staff, he will always comfort us. And as we shout from Lopino Borneo West, from Arima, from Sangre Grande, from Aruca Maloney, from Diego Martin Central, Diego Martin West, Diego Martin Northeast, from Point Fortin and Labre, we will all join our hands together with you, the beautiful constituency of Diego Martin West. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. And we shall always prevail.
Give praise, children. Give praise. Give praise, children. Yeah. Give praise. Give praise, children. Yeah. Oh, Father, who has given us this heart that we can all feel like we are part of this earthly heaven.
So, ladies and gentlemen, true PNM talk. Facts. Facts. We don't sugarcoat. We don't hide. We come out and we tell you as it is, so that you, the members of the public, and you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, could hear exactly what this government is doing. So, at this point, I would now like to introduce a bit of entertainment in the form of Miss Nisha Guy, who will be coming and sing for us.
Testing. Good evening to the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. Good evening to members of Parliament. Good evening to dignitaries. Good evening to each and every single one. I'm nervous. Because it's one thing to see you all on the Parliament channel, but it's another thing to see you all here. All right? All looking at me like, what is she going to do with that head wrap? Yeah, I come out with my little gilly today. But I have to say that this song was specifically chosen to send a message from the Diego Martin West constituency to you, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. All right. So, when you're ready, we could get rid of the awkward silence. When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burden be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raised me up so I can stand on mountains. You raised me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. And I am strong when I your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up to more than I can be. Ollie, stop fibbing. Stop it. So the next, thank you, sir, thank you. I should ask you to come sing with me next time, right? Okay, he said yes. All right, so the next song is from, is from Miss Singing Sandra, rest in peace, and she's the reason why I'm wearing a ghillie. So this song is called, I should just play this song. And Ollie will clap for me. So we're clapping in time, right? On the ones and twos or the twos and fours? Which one? All right then. So when you're ready, maestro. And I can get some volume, please. From across the continent that was once described as dark, oh, I feel a vibration, feel a rhythm, feel a spark, oh, when my spirit is feeling low, that natural mystic haunts me so. Like a Shango or Orisha drum, deep in the Congo saying, come PNM, come. You healer of my pain, pain, make me whole again. Come be my destiny, rhythm, come, set me truly free. I'm awake, I'm alive, bend not break, I'll survive. Not naive, aiming high. I believe I can fly. In their minds they may laugh. Still refining my craft. In my blood there remains like a flood through my vein. Oh, my you make me want to dance. Dance, put me in a trance. Come be my destiny, redeem. Come, set me truly free. Who will make us free in Trinidad and Tobago, boy? Who will make us free in Trinidad and Tobago? Huh? We still clapping. Well, in time I learned that with talent I was blessed. Oh, yes. I learned to let it go and let my God do the rest. Oh, yes. Ever humble with open eyes. Though I stumble still, I rise. From every lesson, yes, I learn. Helping others in return. Oh, pain, make me whole again. Come be my destiny, rhythm. Come, set me truly free. I'm awake, I'm alive, bend not break, I'll survive. Not naive, aiming high. I I believe I can fly. In their minds they may laugh. Still refined in my craft, in my blood they remain like a flood through my vein. Oh, healer of my pain. Pain, make me whole again. And though I travel far, I am Africa. Play drum, my man. Ariwo, yeah. Ariwo, yeah. Hey, Ariwo, yeah. Ariwo, yeah. Hey, ogun vainiti mondo yole. Ariwo, yeah. Hey, Ariwo, yeah. PNM. Thank you. Thank you.
And it is with great pride I let you know that Miss Nisha Guy is from Covine, Diego Martin. She was also the winner of the Digital Rising Star competition and a very proud member of the Diego Martin West constituency. So at this point, I would like to call on Ms. Aaliyah Alexis, the chairman of the Diego Martin West Youth League, to introduce our featured speaker for this evening.
Good evening, Diego Martin West. Now I feel like we could do better than that. Good evening, Diego Martin West. All right, we could start. So, I would like to say, all protocols observed before I start. Good night, everyone. My name is Aaliyah Alexis, and I'm extremely proud to have been elected as the chairman of the best constituency youth league across both islands. The youth league that represents our proficient and benevolent political leader and Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Diego Martin West Youth League. Tonight, I have been entrusted with the distinguished honor to introduce our featured speaker, a leader in every aspect of the word. A man who has been the representative for Diego Martin West since 1991. And I was born in 1998. So let that be an indication of his long-standing service to this constituency and our nation. This man is an accomplished volcanologist who obtained his doctorate in geology, specializing in geochemistry. He has provided excellent representation and support to his constituents throughout his tenure, and we couldn't ask for a better leader. He has shown a keen interest in the development of youth through the building of our Bagatelle Sports Arena and the Homework Center located in Carnage. If I were to stand here tonight and discuss all of the great things our leader has done for our constituency, and by extension, our nation, this conference will never end. So tonight, I ask for your assistance in allowing me to welcome our political leader, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, and our Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley.
Somebody touch me, somebody touch me, somebody touch my soul. Yeah. Somebody pray to me, Jesus, somebody touch my soul. Somebody touch me, somebody touch me, somebody touch my soul. Who, me? While I was praying, Thank you very much, Leah. Thank you, thank you. A very good evening from Diego Martin West. Well, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to acknowledge at our 49th conference some of my colleagues from some other constituencies who are here with us tonight. And I'm sure they would have got the message that they are in the best constituency. Permit me to acknowledge, I hear she's the matriarch, but she can only be a matriarch when June not around. My colleague from Aruka Maloney, the lady vice chairman, unopposed of the People's National Movement, Mrs. Camille Robinson Regis. And permit me to acknowledge my colleague from San Fernando West, also unopposed, the PRO of the People's National Movement, Haris Al-Rawi. I also would like to acknowledge the Member of Parliament from Point Fortin, the far southwestern peninsula, Sir Kennedy Richards. And from the far eastern corner and the north coast, the Member of Parliament for Toko Sangriande, Mr. Roger Monroe. And from right there down the road from Diego Martin Central, we have our neighbor, Mr. Simon de Nobrega. And coming in from the hills of Laventille, we have the Member of Parliament for Laventille East, Mr. Adrian Leons. And from San Fernando East, Mr. Brian Manning. And of course, this country is Trinidad and Tobago. And we have here tonight the Member of Parliament for Tobago East. And the Member of Parliament for Tobago West, Kampa Joe. And of course, all my colleagues from the Senate who just closed their first day of debate in the national budget and come on stage. I have with me on stage the Member of Parliament for St. Anne's East, the Minister of Education, who just gave us an educational discourse on the monies we spend on education, Mrs. Nayan Gatsby-Dolly. And I have the man who's helping us stay dry, so they say, in the rainy season, but he's trying to get us as much potable water as we need, Mr. Marvin Gonzalez from Lopino Bonaire. And permit me to acknowledge who this conference is about. This conference is about you, the delegates, led by your chairman, who are taking responsibility for the next period of service in keeping with our Constitution. Those of you who have been presented here tonight, who have accepted office, our delegates who are members of the executive of Diego Martin West, thank you very much for agreeing to serve again. And those of you who are new, thank you very much for serving. And I also would like to acknowledge our specially invited guests, some of whom I haven't seen for a long time. Campaign manager Jackie, I haven't seen her for a while. We have Gloria, and a very special guest I crave your indulgence to acknowledge in our presence tonight, the one and only Mrs. Marilyn Gordon. All of you members of Diego Martin West, supporters of the PNM, friends all, and members of the media, members of the supporting community. Ladies and gentlemen, we of the PNM, we are governed by a constitution. And the constitution lays down how we should function, what we should do, and when we should do it. And we are now a very mature party. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that constitution that has kept us safe, whole, and confident. From party group to AGM to conference to convention. We follow the dictates of the Constitution, and before we go on now to a convention or annual convention, this conference is where we close the activity in the constituency and we look forward to the annual convention. But before that, we have to gird our loins, walk the streets, get on the phone, encourage all our party members to take part in our ongoing internal election where we select those who would lead us for the next 3 or 4 years, as the case might be. Tonight, you would have heard one of my colleagues say that I always say, and I say it again tonight, hard work is for young people, except me. I am the only person from my class who is still working. Everybody else from my class in high school have retired a long time ago, and some people say maybe I should. It's a good idea. But in the meantime, hard work is for young people. And I want to make sure that the hard work is done, and I'm very pleased to see so many young people involved in the constituency of the Diego Martin West and in the party, the People's National Movement tonight. You heard Aliyah say, one of my babies introduced me here tonight. She was a babe in arms when I started out in Diego Martin West many, many years ago. She's Karen's granddaughter. Karen is a grandmother, you didn't know that, right? But it's such a pleasure to be here tonight to be introduced by someone who I knew born a PNM and is still seeing the PNM as the best option in Trinidad and Tobago. And I'll tell you something else. She's growing up in the best environment. Diego Martin and PNM, they go together. But tonight I want to talk a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, about development and standards. Because I've been around, some of you can't add it. I've been around for 35 years, not 33. And during that time, I've seen development. I've taken part in development. I have been responsible for bringing development, and I've seen the outcome of service. When I first started out in Diego Martin West in 1987, this Diego Martin was a very different place, but it was always a beautiful and welcoming place. Always. And today, as I look back on the development that we've made during our time, I want to take a couple minutes just to run down on those developments. Because you see, I joined the PNM in 1974 in Tunapuna, having come from Tobago. And I distinctly recall when in some communities, the big development was a standpipe. Standpipe. Or moving from a dirt road, if there was a road at all, from a track to a paved road. That was a big development that even got some people elected because you brought that development to the community. In my own community, in Mason Hall, Tobago, I was just about to enter high school when we got electricity and also street lights. One of the major activities then at night is to go out and watch street lights. Aliyah, don't laugh at that. It was not uncommon that parents will take their children, hands full of children, to go for a walk to watch street light. But we went past that. Development in Diego Martin West in my time as your member of parliament. When I came into Diego Martin, Carenage, imagine a place like Carenage. Boys and girls in one school that was 50% overcrowded. Needing a new school for the boys. You now have a boys' school in Carenage alongside the girls' school. That is development. Even though it happened while I was in the opposition, but the representation that you had saw Point Kumana, that old house that was Point Kumana, RC, a very good school producing some significant results. Point Kumana RC. Today you have a fine RC school, Point Kumana. I'm sure you forgot what the old house looked like. Diego Martin Boys RC is no longer a dark, poorly lit old house. It's a 3-story building now, one of the better primary schools in the country, Diego Martin Boys RC. And only 2 months ago, when we came back out to school, Diego Martin Girls RC went into a new section of their school. And education-wise, ladies and gentlemen, we have always been in the forefront of education. I hear some people trying to say that they brought education to this country and pre-secondary education, but let them entertain themselves. History will show that education, except for maybe 1 or 2 years in our difficult period of fighting crime, has always been the #1 item of expenditure of the government of Trinidad and Tobago under the PNM. And it is that education priority policy that has moved many of us from wherever we were to where we and our children and grandchildren are today, education. And that is why I, as Member of Parliament, I have made the effort to ensure that in every one of those primary schools in this constituency coming out of this COVID period, there is a computer lab staffed by a dozen very good, high-quality computers which now exist in every primary school in Diego Martin West. And coming not from the government, because the government puts laptop. You know, you have some people who talk about laptop. We add to that policy, not only having every child have a laptop from wherever you get it from, but in the school as part of the curriculum, if there's a computer lab with computers that are functional and good enough, with the programs that are supposed to be on those computers, and you have a dozen in each school, the principals have told me that they could make sure that every child in that school have access to those computers and learn how to handle and use and understand computers in the school as part of the school curriculum. It's happening in Diego Martin West. And ladies and gentlemen, we also talk about development with respect to how the community functions. You heard Pastor Duncan tonight talk about unity and unifying and the need to be together. That's what community centers are about. And community centers were few and far between in this part of the country. Today you boast one in Carenage, one in Point Kumana, one in Diego Martin North, which is now being rebuilt, one in Bagatelle, which is one of the best in the country. And here we are tonight in Diego Martin South, where you have one of the final community centers. All of those as part of the ongoing development, because development is an ongoing exercise. Ladies and gentlemen, safety has always been a high priority with PNM governments. And that is why we have ensured that the old house that was Carenage Police Station is today a community outreach exercise for students to go and do work after. We've converted that building into a small community activity center for young people, because we have one of the finest police stations in the country, soon to have a riverine unit, the Carenage Police Station. As we talk about development, people are no longer getting killed running through traffic in 4 roads. They have an overpass, so you can cross the flowing traffic in safety. And of course, in a matter of a couple months or so, the overpass that is being built, the South Diego Martin overpass, north of West Moorings, that link the Western Peninsula into Diego Martin, would be completed And finally, you'll be able to drive safely and to turn north and to turn south and to turn east and to turn west on a modern overpass that links two of the most densely populated areas in the country. And ladies and gentlemen, that is not all. When the Diego Martin Regional Corporation was formed many, many years ago, I think it was under the NAR in that period of, it was during the NAR when those corporations were brought into being. The Diego Martin Corporation was born and still lives in two old government houses deep down in Diego Martin. Difficult to access, can't even be found by those who don't know where they are. But as part of the development of this country, to join ARIMA, and having said that, I missed out calling out my colleague from ARIMA who is here with us tonight, Mrs. Penny Beckers. She's here with us tonight. To join ARIMA, Point Fortin, Chaguanas, Tunapuna, all of them, sometime in the very, very near future, the Diego Martin people will have access to a modern Diego Martin Corporation head office in the area of the South Diego Martin entering the valley. Yours is there. Construction is complete. It is being outfitted, and very soon we're going to have Chairman Sigler Jack, who I also where is he? He's just Chairman Sigler Jack of the Diego Martin Corporation. If you don't make a noise, you get left out. I want you to welcome the chairman of the corporation here tonight. But he knows that Diego Martin, good things come to those who wait, and your time has come. Very soon, you'll be opening your new head office. But you'll be doing more than that. And if my memory serves me right, Sigler Jack had a hand in that too. The moving of the motion to make Diego Martin a borough. That is on and is going well. And in that corner over there, maybe I should take my glasses off. It's reflecting in that corner. Because I missed out Sigler and I missed out the Member of Parliament for Derby O'Meara. Right? Welcome to Diego Martin West. So we have things happening in Diego Martin. Diego Martin is going to be a borough. All the steps have been taken. It's just the final steps. Diego Martin and Siparia. These are commitments we made and commitments to be kept. I understand that some people want to change their minds in Siparia, but I don't believe that that is the majority of people down there, because we are talking about local government reform. And that is a part of local government reform, which is coming and coming fast. Ladies and gentlemen, we also have in our Western District, as part of our ongoing development program, the newest and also probably the best park. We have West Park that has been built from an area that was being deemed to be abandoned bushes. We built a park for the community. And you may not live in or around the area, but it is certainly available for use for any person who would want to go in and use it for the benefits of physical activity. West Park in Diego Martin West. Ladies and gentlemen, health. Again, representing you as an opposition member and working directly involved in it, cooperatively with the government of the day, we built you the Carnage Health Center. And more than that, in the height of a pandemic, we built you the Diego Martin Health Center, which provides a whole range of services, some that you don't get in some hospitals in some parts of the world. The Diego Martin Health Center is a health center with a difference. You get child care. You get attention to chronic diseases, immunization. It even has a situation where if you come in with an infection, there's a particular room, right, which is vacuum controlled, that you can go in there and that infection can be dealt with no risk of it being spread to the other part of the building. That is Diego Martin Health Center for you. And as I do that, there's one more that requires to be done. And that is well underway in the hands of UDCOT. and that is the modern Diego Martin Library, which is to be constructed at the corner of Wendy Fitzwilliam Boulevard and the Diego Martin Main Road. It's on its way. So, ladies and gentlemen, you may think that that is all. But where else in the world would you find a finer sporting facility than the scenic Diego Martin Sporting Complex, which is now hosting international standard cricket right here in the deep valley of Diego Martin? And I'm sure you would have heard the accolades bestowed on that facility by those who came from outside of Diego Martin, from outside of our country, who had the opportunity to view cricket in there, and very soon we will have other activities. And I'm to advise you that our cricket team has announced that they've got a new sponsor, and that sponsorship will lift our regional cricket team from the west right back up to the top of cricket in the region. So, ladies and gentlemen, hard work is for young people. But they need to be guided, they need to be supported. And that is why tonight, as the national budget was being debated, and the leader in the Senate, the last time he was talking, he spent the whole speech talking about my sheep. Today he spent the whole day talking about some non-existent 5-story building that somebody built for me in Tobago. Nothing to do with the $56 billion budget that had so much in it. As ministers just pointed out to you, Minister Dolly just pointed out to you, in it for education, what was there? Spending time trying to demonize personalities, lying about corruption on the part of other people. But I will ignore them because that is them. Tonight, at this moment, I want to ask two people to stand up here tonight. Senator Lawrence Hislop from Tobago and Senator Renuka Segram Singh Siklal. These two young senators were the last two speakers in today's parliamentary debate, and Lord, was I proud of both of them. So Diego Martin, you've seen the future, because my job is to find them and mold them. Hard work is for young people, but finding them and supporting them and molding them, that is for the party and for me and for you. Thank you all very much. And it brings me to standards. It brings me to standards. A few years ago, I went to a parliament somewhere in the world. And our High Commissioner took me to the parliament and just the budget time, so the debate. And in the parliament, he pointed out to me a number of parliamentarians who, while holding office, significant office, were in fact on criminal charges. One of which was said to be on a charge for attempted murder. I was a little bit taken aback by that. But the country was so large, I said that country could absorb those kind of things, because maybe such persons get lost in the large crowd. But in a small society like ours, we can't risk normalizing standards like that. And that is why when the UNC put up a candidate many years ago in Tobago who had a criminal record, the PNM made an issue of it. And that is why when the chairman of the Mayaro Corporation was charged, the PNM said he should not be allowed to remain as chairman of the corporation while he was charged for whatever he was accused of. Bribery, I think it was. Another one in Sangre Grande, from them, he was on in charge of tenders, and of course he was charged too. So I'm saying this to say that we are normalizing a kind of behavior in this country that is not going to do us well. But then, when the leaders who are supposed to guide the youngsters accept that as normal, then the country has to ask about the normalcy of that. Because two people, one an attorney general, one a senator, was charged again. They left. They were asked to leave the parliament because somebody felt that the standards that we should be keeping, you shouldn't be in the Senate if that is your outcome. Recently, you see the chief whip in the parliament charged criminal conduct and $1 million bail, not being defended to the teeth by the leader of the opposition. But more importantly, it is one thing for the individual to say, I have nothing to take care of. That's normal. Maybe it is normal. Because in Tobago, we had man on a rape charge, he get elected, so the people say it's normal. Next election, he get elected again, people say, yes, it's normal. Third election, he in charge of Tobago. See how it creeps. So we're normalizing that. And I'm putting Trinidad and Tobago on notice now that insofar as we are normalizing that, it's a dagger aimed at the heart of the future of Trinidad and Tobago for the convenience of those who can't rise to the higher standard. Nobody in the PNM could look forward to being advanced if in fact you have been convicted on criminal charges, or if you are leading the PNM in the parliament and you find yourself on $1 million bail. Tonight, I want to say to Trinidad and Tobago, it might be convenient for Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa, and she will destroy anybody that she thinks she can destroy to normalize that kind of situation. Yesterday I watched her behavior in misrepresenting facts and seeking to once again attach herself to the member of parliament for San Fernando West. But one is senior counsel, one is, I leave lawyers to conduct lawyers' business. But I want to say something to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. There's nothing that the opposition leader can do and will do that will shake the resolve of the PNM government of Trinidad and Tobago as we resolutely go after those who have committed crimes, white-collar crime in this country. Because without going into any details of a matter that I know something about, I want to say to you here in Diego Martin West and in the rest of the country, that kind of behavior you saw from the opposition leader yesterday, full of misrepresentations, full of cherry picking and misrepresenting facts, and ensuring that certain things never come forward, is all about muddying the water to normalize the situation for people who have serious questions to answer to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And you noticed yesterday, in that whole carrying on, the one thing that was absent from her conversation, which is what has been absent all along in treating with white-collar crime in this country, is the evidence. What does the evidence say? And who has done what? It is all now about the process. And of course, they think they have found fault in the process. That is a matter for the court. But I will tell you, when we have a situation in this country where people's money have been stolen, and those who took part of it in a foreign country would have been held by a foreign government, would have served their time in a foreign jail, But the local people ensure that they never have to answer in a court where evidence is led. Then the people of Trinidad and Tobago must take notice, because that ought not to be the normal situation. And of course, recently you would have heard the official position from the UNC when David Lee was arrested, that ain't going to go nowhere, and it will take 20 years, and then he will not have to account. That was the official position of the official opposition of a member of parliament who is on $1 million bail. Understand what's going on in this country? You understand what's going on in this country? And of course, I'm listening to the conversation of the opposition leader, and she's asking over and over, and the media is asking over and over, in a situation where members of parliament are having or should be facing the court for stealing public money, it appears as though the biggest question was being asked: where is the Prime Minister and where is the cabinet in this? But let me answer all of you tonight, in the UNC and the media. The Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, especially when the post is held by me, but in the Constitution it is also, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago has no involvement and no role in the prosecution of any person in this country. So those who are asking where is the Prime Minister in the matter to do with the DPP's action and the Vincent Nelson matter, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago has nothing to do with the prosecutional processes against any person in this country. So stop asking for me. And as for the cabinet, we're not running a parlor, you know. We are running a cabinet. And matters come to the cabinet in a particular way. What matter has to come to the cabinet for the cabinet to determine if a person has a deal to turn state witness? What the hell does that do to the cabinet? That is a matter for the state's legal department, fully staffed by lawyers, headed by an attorney general, the DPP, and the courts. So why is the UNC, and I want to say to the media too, why are you all asking? You know something else. But you see, when Mrs. Pastor starts her stupidness, the echo chamber is the media. Instead of asking, what does the cabinet have to do with that? What does the Prime Minister have to do with that? Well, we know you love Faris, right? But I'm saying that it's time we get serious on serious business. And of course, you know the big thing? You know, some lawyer, a senior counsel from the United Kingdom, come to the Trinidad court, present evidence that what he did, plead guilty, was convicted, was fined $2.2 million, agreed to turn state witness to talk about his friend who involved. But the opposition leader's big point yesterday is that that gentleman, is claiming $150 million in damages. Of course, yes. I'm sorry, he could have claimed 200. But since when claims is of concern to her? Since when? But let me raise with her a claim that is of concern to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, not some convict who thief your money and decide they want to be compensated for that. That's a matter for the courts. And you know the state have plenty courthouse closed, even in a pandemic. You spend $15 million in courthouse closed answering questions that they raise about the doctors in the courthouse. But there's a claim that I must remind her about. You all remember that in an attempt to diversify this economy, the Patrick Manning government decided that we wouldn't rely only on oil and gas. We'll try to go into aluminium. And we had set about to build an aluminium smelter. And there were people who, as far as they're concerned, they're comfortable where they are, and they don't care who get a job, who have a future. No, 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 no. Smelter will kill us. Smelter will smoke us out. But Bahrain, about the same size as Trinidad and Tobago, is one of the world's leading producers of aluminium and selling it and making money and living among the highest standard of living in the world. Same aluminium that they wanted to say would have killed Trinidad and Tobago. Go and look at the Bahraini economy and see what they're doing and see how safe their people are. The UNC government came into office and they shut down the plant and chased up the contractor. You all remember that? While they were in office, the contractor kept making their claims for that action. They ignored it, they danced around it, they did other things except deal with it. Because they didn't want you to know that there was a cost to that political action. We came into office, took a while for the claimants to come. They came to us, and they're pressing for their compensation for what had gone on, because the site, the project was well underway. Well underway. In fact, the power station, TGU, was built and ready to be used. That's what we're using now as one of our main power supply entities. That power was supposed to be going to the smelter. But since there was no smelter, after years of wasting money, we got it into the national grid. You know what the claim is now, that the Chinese company has said enough is enough, time is up, we want our money, and therefore Trinidad and Tobago, you owe us that claim, and they intend to process it now? The claim is for $380 million US. That's $2.5 billion for having improperly shut down a project which there was a contract and which there were works taking place, and the project was politically extinguished. You think the people who did that have any interest in claims and your money? And to see her yesterday talking about some man, some convict, and a claim of 150, I am talking here about $380 million US with documents as a contractor which says that Trinidad and Tobago owes this money for work or for circumstances where there's a contract to be pursued. And that is left for the PNM to deal with, because we're dealing with it now. And at the appropriate time, we'll approach the Parliament and give the Parliament all the details surrounding this, because that is the real claim that we're dealing with. So, ladies and gentlemen, our country has made some significant progress. But the conversation from those who cannot reasonably attack the actions that we have taken, they spend more time attacking the persons and the personalities who are involved. So, you would hear who don't like this and who don't like that. There's one character who is asking to lead you, and when asked, what is the reason why you think that you should intervene at this time? Well, I think the Prime Minister is crude. I think that the way the Prime Minister treats people in the country, and I think the Prime Minister doesn't like women. Well, she wouldn't know about that, would she? But I will tell you something. In a difficult period, the one thing this Prime Minister and the cabinet he led did not do is to take a single dollar away from any person in this country who was deemed to be relying on the state for social support. Not one. And we did more than that. We increased the amount of money that the state was providing to those persons who were relying on the state in those various programs in the Ministry of Social Development, where we allocate over $5 billion of the budget. So when the revenue fell from $60 billion to $43 billion, we still maintain $5 billion for persons who were relying on the state for cash at the end of the month. The advice that we got from many people was to cut the expenditure in an equivalent way to meet the fall in the revenue. We didn't do that because we cared about those who relied on the government for their next meal. Thousands of them in the Ministry of Social Development who get their pension, which is a free pension from the state. In this country, public servants don't contribute cash to their pension. The government covers it fully. And all the people in the social services, we increased those social services for those people. And then the very last thing we did in this very budget, because we know that there will be some increase in the transportation cost, and some of those persons will travel for some reason, and money that you may otherwise have spent on a bread or on a tin of milk or something, the government said, okay, we will give each and every person who is on the social register, getting social support from the government, to contribute towards that increase that may come your way at the travel point. We'll give you $1,000, and they'll get it very soon. But of course, that is going to affect, I think the figure is 300,000, something like that. Some large number of people. But of course, you will not hear that as part of the budget discussion. And if you are employed and you are earning $7,000, $7,500 or less per month, you pay no tax as of this budget. Before that, if you were employed and your income was up to $7,500, you would have had to pay tax once you were beyond a certain level. Now $7,500, you pay no tax. So we've left that money in your hand rather than have it taken by the taxman to go to the Ministry of Finance and the Consolidated Fund. And of course, that is the kind of thing that we have been doing to give people a little more breathing space as the circumstances close in on us. And for those who cannot seriously engage that kind of public endeavor, they turn to other things because they have to say something. Yeah? You heard tonight the Minister of Education talk about how we've changed the government support for education at the level of the high school going into university. You know what was happening there? Because people who are most comfortable have the comfort of doing well in exams because they have less of the negatives going. And of course, many children whose parents can in fact support them without bothering with respect to education beyond high school. When you are basing the support for students solely, I'm not saying it's not based on that, I'm saying solely on how well they have done in the public exams, it left out a significant number of people who really needed help. And of course, many of those students in the scholarship program would go abroad to study, and it's a good thing to go abroad to study. There are benefits in going abroad to study. But here what was happening in some cases. Let's take medicine. A student who went to study in Ireland to be a doctor, second MD, that was going to cost the taxpayer over $1 million. That scholarship, 1.2 million or something like that, to study in an Irish school. That same 1.2 million could train 3 doctors in Mount Hope. So what we said we will do to ensure that there is more equity in the program and more people will benefit from the program is that we said we will support everybody. But the means, the mechanism of doing that is that if you are able to contribute to your own education, the parents can do it. Then we're asking the parents to contribute something to that child who is at the top of the list. And for that child at the bottom of the list, whose parent has nothing to contribute, but this child has tremendous potential as demonstrated by the results of the exam, that child will get a bursary, which means the payment of what is necessary to have that child educated. So the same amount of money allows us to reach 600 students as against 400. You know what it is to be training by government support into a university? 200 more students per year. Ladies and gentlemen, there are some countries where the whole program is not 200. We are adding 200 to 400 to get 600 students benefit from that same pot of money. And of course, you might tell me, the doctor trained in Ireland is a better doctor because he trained in Ireland. And I will tell you that you are Privy Councillors because you believe that law in London is better than law in Trinidad and Tobago. So you wouldn't support the CCJ. You will support the Privy Council until they ask you to leave. Okay? But ladies and gentlemen, when a budget comes to the Parliament, as it has just done, you, the people of Diego Martin West, you know how development goes incrementally year by year. The things I just mentioned, that brings Diego Martin to being one of the better developed areas in the country, if not the most developed area in the country. They were not all done in the same year. They were not all done in the same budget. You know how they were done? They were done by a PNM government consistently from year to year, from budget to budget, takes us on a journey that says we are here today, we can take these actions, tomorrow we'll be further along the road of development. That's how it is done. And it falls to parents in this country to teach your children that that is how life evolves. Because sometimes you know what you want to have, but it's not available now. That does not mean it's not available. It could be, and it must be available a little further along the way if you make the journey to where it is. And you would have heard a minister tonight say to you, as we understand it in the cabinet, everybody does not have the same living circumstance. We all have different circumstances at the personal level. And what the government does in preparing a national budget, which is an estimate of how you will spend what you intend to earn, it looks to see how the various groupings in the country are making it and what effect the government can have in intervening here, there, or everywhere. So if you're a businessman making a good income from your business, you might take the posture that you don't need the government decision. You're making it on your own. But when you examine very closely, your interaction with the government may be even more expensive to the state than the person who is on the social welfare program. But of course, the government will support your business because what you have done at the personal level in having a business is create an environment in which people can get jobs and the state can get goods and services. That's how it is. And if you have to go to a health center, look, recently, there's a family that told me a story about a small child who had a life-threatening emergency. And of course, what parents do, the first thing you do with a child is panic. And then the next thing is, how can I get help for the child? So they rush to the nearest health facility, which happened to be a private one. And the child is there with the situation. And of course, immediately, cost comes up. Because a private hospital provided health care, there's a cost that goes with it. And the situation required attention, and the cost is $25,000. $25,000 to lay hand on the child. Parents, panic step in again. Parents out of there, down to Mount Hope. Matter taken care of. No charge. Free. There's another situation I know of where a person had a more serious situation further along the life, adult, required care, emergency care, end up again in front of a private hospital door in emergency. Price for the service, $240,000. Person doesn't have it. The average person in this country don't have that. Life is in danger, can't pay. And of course, nobody's going to put their hand on you if they cannot be told how that's going to be paid. Mount Hope, matter taken care of, no charge. In this country, we take these things for granted. I very frequently read from some people who have fingers stuck, saying, oh, this is the worst government. Rowley is the worst prime minister. Government and do nothing. That's a famous one. Government and do nothing. And I'm saying, I wonder if this person or his or her family would really go to St. James and get service from the most modern cancer machine that exists. I call it a lineup machine. It costs $75 million to get that machine installed in St. James, in the Cancer Care Center. It wasn't put there when the country had billions of dollars extra. It wasn't put there when somebody else was the prime minister recently. It was put there when we had no money. Because this PNM government gave cancer care a priority and bought it for $75 million. Recently, I was with my colleague down in Point 14, bringing back into operation a famous, iconic site, Mahika Oval, that produced some of the best footballers in this country. And Mahika was in such a condition, it was a depression for the people of Point 14 to see Mahika not being used, covered by bush, and in fact, their history ignored. Well, in this time of limited resources, Mahika has been rebuilt, and the people of Point 14 has a brand new Mahika sporting complex. You, the people of Diego Martin, that sporting complex that you're now so proud of down there, it stayed there with the foundation left there for 5 years. Grass growing on it. And it was when this government came into office that we, in a period of great stringency, with limited resources, today you have the finest sporting facility in the country in Diego Martin. The point I am making, ladies and gentlemen, elections matter. It's not always about what you have. It's always about what you do with it. And the party that does the most with the resources of Trinidad and Tobago is the People's National Movement. So when you hear Mrs. Prasad, my sister, wake up, whenever she wake up and come and start to rant and rave and misbehave, remember that it was in this period of stringency and shortage of revenue that we built the Curep overpass. If you're going east now, you no longer have to stop at Curep for the light to change. You drive straight up because an overpass has been built there during this period of our service. And we built it We built it for $300 million less. Let me repeat that for those of you who have wax in your ears. That project was going to be built for $500 million in 2015 by the last government of the UNC. Bacchanal breakout in the cabinet over which minister was backing which contractor. Remember that story? When we came into office, the last thing they did during that bacchanal, they tried to divide the contract into 3 pieces to give one contractor the northern part, one the southern part, and one in the middle will get the overpass, the actual overpass itself. They started threatening lawsuit, left, right, and center. Election came and you voted wisely. We built that overpass for $217 million, which was a few $1 million below the budget of $225 million. And that overpass was going to be built for $500 million. And all you have to ask yourself is, where was that $300 million going? Ask yourself that. And those are the important things, you know. You would have heard her yesterday, getting on, as though she's caught a fish. But you wouldn't think that she had to answer for who in her government, when she had the authority, who in your government on the Friday before election took out the clause of a contract for the Point 14 highway works, the effect of that clause being taken out, which said that if the contractor goes bankrupt, the bonds belong to the state. The Friday, the last working day of the UNC, they took out the clause from the contract, and the contractor went away with the bonds. They lost the election. We came into office, and the contractor has the bonds. We said those bonds belong to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. The UNC said no. We went to court, took the contractors to court. PNM took the contractors to court. We won the matter, and we got back $921 million. The court said to us, the matter is in arbitration. You spend the money. Let us see what the arbitration says. But the one thing they're not answering at all is who authorized that takeout of that clause. The same way they're pretending they don't know that there are people who have been accused in the said lawsuit that they're carrying on about now, who have been accused of taking public money. There's testimony in the court now which forms part of the court's records. And you know what the opposition leader says? Ram Logan has been exonerated. Exonerated by whom? By whom? By his leader. But we're not surprised at that. We're not surprised to hear the leader of the UNC saying that. And I tell you, I'm talking to you about standards. Exonerated. So she's going to go in there and erase the court record where Vincent Nelson, senior counsel from England, tell Justice Malcolm Oldip, I did that. And when the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago says, things happen in law, things happen in the court, but rest assured, people, that the government at the Attorney General's office will leave no stone unturned to ensure that those who did the wrong will answer for it in the right place in the courthouse. She couldn't find words vile enough to attack the Attorney General. I mean, the words that the opposition leader uses to refer to the Attorney General in Trinidad and Tobago, quite unbecoming of any leader. You might disagree with the Attorney General, but I mean, the description of the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago by the opposition leader simply says, our standards are falling. That's what he says. I'm telling you about exonerated. But you know, Diego Martin, that same Prime Minister, when $6 million in live sport became a $400 million killing field. A report was done in the Ministry of Finance about who did what and what was going wrong inside there. That report ended up in the hands of the Prime Minister because it was her government. She got the report. The report pointed its finger at a minister. You know what the Prime Minister did? You know what that Prime Minister did? A senior counselor she is. She must have known that if she made that report public, that the minister could have gone to court and have the report quashed. And it is because she knew that why she made the report public. And her minister went to court and she knew he was going to win the case. Because if you don't give him an opportunity to respond and he goes to court, as I have done, winning the matter is automatic. And she so knew that the day he was going to win the matter, when the court matter was coming up, she put a meeting inside Diego Martin here. Came to rub it in your face. A UNC meeting in Diego Martin, the very said night of the day when Anil Roberts won that matter, because the Prime Minister had allowed the report to go public without him being able to respond to it. And on that very platform, she exonerated him and offered him a senatorship. Today he's in our Senate, behaving in the vilest and most offensive of matters because he fits the standard that is being set by Kamla Prasad Bissessa and the UNC. You know, I go out there as the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, representing each and every one of you in this country, and I make sure when I go out there, whoever see me, whoever talk to me, whoever know me, they must know Trinidad and Tobago. All of a sudden, the big issue is the Prime Minister traveling too much. Me? I'm probably the least traveled Prime Minister in the country. I've been Prime Minister for 7 years. Every year the UN meets. I've been there once. And the only time I went to the UNGA was when they were trying to wage war in Venezuela to put us in trouble here. I went to the UN to speak to the UN and to the world about what they were threatening to do in Venezuela to affect Trinidad and Tobago in an immeasurable way. Usually we're represented by the minister, the foreign minister. Last week, they had UN, 2 weeks ago, they had UNGA. But you know, ask yourself, when this last Prime Minister was traveling, was a whole shebang, half a plane full of them. They're going to Australia, they're going to India, they're going to Ohio, they're going to Timbuktu. What can they point to as a result of having gone abroad, ostensibly on business of the people of Trinidad and Tobago? Just tell me, one, what did one trip ever result in? But I could tell you, every trip that I have made, every single one, I could report to the country where I've been, what I've done, and what the outcome has been. I see one of them counting the other day how much the trip cost to Los Angeles, where the Summit of the Americas was taking place. And I represented Trinidad and Tobago at the Summit of the Americas. One of them put out some story that I was in America, held by the American authorities for laundering money and whatever. And that I'm supposed, I'm going to be sanctioned, or I'm helping the American authorities. The very day that I'm meeting with the American president, having lunch with the American president, that is a story in Trinidad put out by the UNC. And it costs this dollars. But I heard something said by the opposition leader, which I don't normally agree with her. But I agree with her wholeheartedly on this one. She said recently in the parliament, $1 stolen is $1 that could be used to feed a child. Mrs. Prasad Bissessa, I agree. And I leave that to you and your conscience. I agree with that. Because And now, how much it cost to feed an orphanage? Some people deserve to be told that an orphanage is starving. And we are, as a government, as a PNM government, we are hearing now from them, they're counting how much money we're spending on lawyers. And all of a sudden, legal fees is a problem for them. But I could tell you one thing. I will be the most surprised person. And as of now, I know of no situation where any money paid to any lawyer in any legal matter end up in the pocket of any member of the government which I lead. I don't know. And they want to say, well, listen, pursuing white-collar crime is too expensive, so don't bother. That is the position of the UNC. Don't spend money pursuing white-collar crime. Well, I want to declare here tonight, as we are in pursuit of white-collar crime, the price at the end is not the matter. It is whether we find the culprits and put them where they belong. And running interference on behalf of people who have matter in the court wouldn't faze us one bit. Because every dollar we say we spend on legal fees, we could tell you what that money was spent for. You hire a lawyer in London, start over £1 million you want to charge you for a case. £1 million, $88 million, just start with that. You know that? When murderers appeal to the Privy Council, every murder appeal, you have to hire a senior counsel to go to the Privy Council. You're counting in millions. That's what it is. All of a sudden, those who distrust us in the worst possible way and who behaving as though shame doesn't exist, telling us and counting money for us and telling us, leave it so. So 20 years, Piako matter going on. They're saying, well, leave it so. We as a PNM government, we subscribe to the principle of morality in public affairs, and people from time to time will fall short, and when they do, the state has no alternative but to pursue it to the end. Public servants know that, you know. If a cashier in Curep is found to have mishandled $10 or $100 or any money for that matter, the cashier still in the public service, you know and I know exactly how that public servant will be dealt with. But parliamentarians led by Mrs. Prasad Bisesa want to turn the table where the issue now is not so much of those who commit the crime, those who admit to the crime. It is all about those who proceed to have them account for the crime. That's what it is about. But we will have none of that. We will have none of it. We will continue to ensure that the country maintain the high standards that Dr. Williams set here from 1956 to 1981. We will make sure that we maintain the high standards that A.N.R. Robinson set here when he was Prime Minister of this country. We will ensure that the high standards of Patrick Manning is maintained. And who don't like it could lump it, because those are the standards of Trinidad and Tobago. And if you believe that you'll make enough manima and threaten enough and call for enough resignations, and that would frighten the PNM government into taking action against criminals who distress this country, you have another thought coming. You have another thought coming. So don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. Our standards are standards that when you go abroad to represent Trinidad and Tobago, you don't meet the head of our company in IT. Right? That's our standard. But they're just dragging us down, dragging us down, dragging us down. They encourage people to leave this country in a period of hardship. All of us having a hard time. Encourage people to leave this country and go to Canada and claim that they are refugees from Trinidad and Tobago. Lying and saying how they can't get police protection in Trinidad and Tobago. As a result of that, Canada put us on visa. Right? And they would never mention that as though it never happened. The UNC got us in that position. Never made a statement one day in defense of this country. Encouraging the Americans to sanction Keith Rowley and sanction Stuart Young. Yeah? But let me say something to all of you tonight. The work that I did and that Stuart Young, using his legal skills, did, had we not done that work successfully, the $56 billion budget would not have been 56. Because the work that we have done for the people of Trinidad and Tobago contributed additional billions of dollars to our revenue, all of it available to the Exchequer to give you a budget of the kind that we have had there, where all of us are in the same country, not facing the same individual circumstance, but in the same country, in a period of difficulty, hoping that at the end of the day, we will all make it. Because the difficulty is not permanent. It's not chronic. We'll come out of it over time if we acknowledge that it is a period of difficulty and that the government is a government not of ill will, but a government that is doing the best that we can do as a people with the limited resources that are available to us. And that is why those of you who take office in the PNM, you are part of the management of this country because you keep our constituency whole. And that is why when the election is called, we can count on Diego Martin West like we can count on many other constituencies to ensure that the majority of people who are voted for into Parliament are PNM MPs to ensure that PNM policy is the one that is followed in Trinidad and Tobago. That's what it is all about. Because you do so. You do so and let it fall into the hands of others. Look at what happened in Tobago. 14 seats. Everybody telling you, oh, look, Tobago has found its feet finally. And what happens? 14 days later, confusion reigns. Confusion reigns. Today you would not have known, but Tobago got $300 million from the Minister of Finance for a development program. They gave every cent of it to contractors from Trinidad. So the money came into Tobago, THA write the checks to the contractors, and that money is coming back to Trinidad. Because they don't like the Tobago contractors because there is PNM. You hear them talking about Warner. You know why they're calling the Warner's name? They're calling the name because they are in business in Tobago. Would you believe that? Tobago people, instead of being proud that they generated 2 or 3 contractors who can at least compete and do the work in Tobago, and joining the UNC and calling people names in stupidness. But what is happening in the meantime is that the development of Tobago ends up in the hands of contractors in South and Central Trinidad. So it is important what happens in an election, whether it is local or internal. Whether it is a PNM election for office or leadership, or whether it's a national election, elections have consequences. We go to the convention on the 4th of December. You members, you have a vote. You have options. One of the criticism that I face is that they don't like the way how I run the party because democracy is not existing in the party. Democracy is not existing in the party. So even before the election bell ring, certain people start querying the election system. But you know what that means? In case you didn't make me out, watch me good. When I came in as leader of the PNM, the political leader's term was 5 years. I'm sure you all forgot that. It was under my leadership that the political leader's term was reduced to 4 years. You may recall that the screening committee was only required in our constitution to assist the political leader. We changed that by convention to give the members of the screening committee original authority as members, not to assist the political leader, but to vote as a member of the committee in your own right. We changed it. The Constitution gave us that. But most importantly, we didn't allow 800 delegates to choose who your leader is. A party with tens of thousands of members. You had life-serving members, delegates, who could be corralled quickly, because only 800 of them. And they were determining who was your leader. It was under my stewardship that one man, one vote was introduced into the elections in the PNM. So when you go to the polls, whether you vote early the weekend before or you vote at the convention, every single member who wishes to participate in the process of choosing the leader of this party, you have a vote. Use it, but use it wisely. So when you hear Nowhereans and other sundry characters talking about democracy in the PNM, you tell them, go put that where the monkey put the nuts. Because you see, they never want to